Hi, Nigel J. How you doing?
I am good. How are you, Darrell?
I'm good. I'm in my apartment in Las Vegas, as you know. You're in France. What part of France?
That's right, I am. I'm about 1.5 to 2 hours east of Bordeaux,
Ah, very nice.
inland. Yeah, it's beautiful, and I basically live on a hill.
Yeah, actually,
It's,
I actually just happen to have the photo. I'll show. There you go.
that's it.
That's it. Yeah, during this show, but so we've actually known each other for quite a while. Originally, you brought me on board with Jazz in Europe magazine because you were the editor in
Mhm,
chief at the
mhm.
time, and I started doing interviews with you. And so we kind of hit it off. And then since then, we
Yeah.
started our podcast adventures, which have been fun. And
Mhm.
we just hit 100,000 downloads.
Yay.
Yeah. So that's pretty amazing. What's some of the highlights for you? I mean, this has been going for 7 months. It's actually pretty amazing that we hit that number in 7 months. Um, but of course, the lockdown maybe played a part. A lot of people were sitting at home, with not a whole lot to do. Maybe that's part of it. But what's your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, I hear what you're saying, and there is for me, there's some validity in that people were perhaps a little bit more accessible. But I think also people also at that period through lockdown and artists and well-known ones are a little bit more choosy so that they don't actually dilute what they're doing. And because of your really consummate reputation within the music industry as a whole, through many, many years, you've networked through and you've kept your networking up. That's
Hmm.
been absolutely invaluable to, it's effectively, it's your little black book and some of my little black book as well between
Right.
us. So when you've got that, at the end of the day, the facts are is that your own reputation of business integrity carries you through to a point where people are saying, "Hey, yeah, I'd actually really like to talk to you, Darrell."
Well,
And for
I
me,
think
that's important.
right. Yeah, I think definitely from the guest perspective, it's interesting because that was actually one of the things when we first talked about doing this, doing the Music Matters podcast. The whole idea of getting guests and getting cassette guests on a consistent basis of people that are known was kind of the big challenge, right?
Yeah, and when you've got Billy Amadello says, "Yeah," Billy Sheehan says, "Yeah," a jazz iconic personality, Jason Miles, and
Yeah.
all of these people, and Luther Vandross works with, and then we've also done another vitally important thing is that we've given an opportunity to some what we collectively recognise as up and coming new possible artists, and said, "Hey,
Right.
let's give them a bit of a break as well."
Yeah, I think I'll correct you on one thing is Billy Amendola, just because it's hard to kind of parse
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
But yeah,
yeah.
that's true. I think part of our mission, has been definitely to showcase up and coming artists, along with people that folks know, because of course that helps. It just makes it for a fun show and a diverse show, and you've even had Dean Bushala, who's a very well
Oh
known
yeah.
reality TV director do the show, and he wasn't necessarily music, but he actually part of his story was he helped connect different parts of Europe in the '90s for MTV, so he has a music background. But I think the creative part to me is really the more important thing, where it's actually just being about being creative in general. And music's
Mhm.
definitely part of that, but there's a lot of other avenues that come into play, don't you think?
Yeah, I agree. The essentially what we're doing is music industry interviews, and
Right.
there are so many components of creativity as a holistic whole.
Mm.
When you get an opportunity as you did to not only get up close and personal with Rodney Hall on Fame Recording,
Right.
and even I always laughed and chuckled at the fact that he thought that you were sitting in some really cool studio somewhere,
Yeah, that's true. Actually,
and
you
he
can
was
see my green screen behind me. But normally, my when I do the
yeah.
other video chats that I've been doing, I've been using green screen photos, and one of them is a recording studio. Actually, it was quite real. So
Yeah.
when I interviewed Rodney Hall from Frame Recording Studios from Muscle Shoals, who was actually that's the studio that the movie was based on.
Mhm.
But it was funny because he was sitting in Studio B for him, and he's like, "Hey, I like your studio." I'm like, it's fake, but I managed to convince him, so I was doing pretty good. It's funny.
Yeah. All I can claim is that plant's plastic, you know?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, yeah. What's
But I
who are some of the other guests that we've had on so far that stand out for you?
um, I would say, uh, Michael Santucci was another really
Right.
fascinating thing that we did together, and that whole the vital thing about how it's important to look after your hearing,
Yeah.
especially as a musician throughout your life.
Yeah, Dr.
And
Santucci. So I'll tell people that if they didn't see the episode, Dr. Santucci founded the company called Sensophonics, and
mhm.
that's one of the first companies that came up with the whole idea of in-ear monitors. So he works with many bands, including Rolling Stones. There's a whole bunch of long list, and some of them he can't actually tell me because of the confidentiality. But
Mhm.
yeah, he's a world-renowned audiologist. He actually works with the World Health Organization, which we just got a certificate from them for the interview that we did
Yeah,
with him. But yeah, he was a great guest, really smart guy and really nice man. And
yeah.
yeah, there's been a few like Denny Tedesco is another one from the Wrecking Crew film, the
Oh,
director.
yeah,
Yeah, so
yeah,
much. I mean, I love music as you do too.
yeah.
What did you find fun about Denny's chat?
I I think that with some of the story about the um, on the ice,
Oh, right.
that ice trucking one when he sort of turned up, got in, and started doing some filming and chatting, and they drove off, and then he said, "Okay, right, let's stop now, and I'm going to go back to base." And the drivers go, "Oh no, you can't. We've got to keep going."
Yeah,
It's
actually,
like,
you're talking right. You're talking about Dean Buscala. Yeah. So
oh,
Dean,
sorry, Diva Shala.
that's
Yeah,
okay.
that's it.
Yeah. So Dean actually, for people that don't know, one of his shows, the TV director, one of his TV shows that he produces and directs is Ice Road Truckers. So
Yeah,
that story you're talking about, that he had just shown up in Alaska, and one of the truck drivers was going to go out on the ice, and Dean hopped in the truck with him, thinking like he would be on with them for an hour, and they had a chase vehicle behind them, and that he would be able
yeah,
to leave, and once they get on the actually on the open ocean that's frozen, they can't stop. That's actually
mhm.
dangerous. So he had to do the whole. I think it was like 4 hours or however long that was.
Yeah,
It's funny.
yeah.
Yeah,
It's
he's
funny and
go ahead.
incredible. I
Yeah,
was just that I'm chuckling for two reasons. One is thank you for that correction, and also
that's okay.
just in myself, in just under 7 months, we've done 33, and we're coming on to 34, 35 podcasts. And behind the scenes, as basically what I am, is you're listening to all these fascinating stories as I go through post production. But
Right.
that's actually a lot of well-known people that we've actually connected with in a very short space of time. So there
Mhm.
are occasions I acknowledge that I get it's all a little bit mixed up in my head because
Well, it's been a bit
um,
of a blur because actually, like
yeah,
even doing because sometimes we're actually releasing 2 shows a week.
mm,
Depends on who the guests are, and also we have some people have they're doing certain releases. Like our friend Tim Quick, his album was just coming
yeah,
out. He plays with the Bacon Brothers and Broadway guitar player, so we try to accommodate that as best we
yeah.
can. Sometimes that means releasing 2 episodes in 1 week, which is a lot of work for you, right?
That's like yeah. I mean, I remember we who was it? Oh, Dylan and Alice.
Right. Yeah. The new metal band. Yeah.
Yeah, and that was a real hoot, wasn't it? I mean, we had a wide range of artist age groups as well, which is one thing I've always loved about what we're doing
Yeah.
is that we're making ourselves accessible to as many people as possible, regardless of their age,
Right.
and also how people can become well known. I mean, and then you get that absolutely what a lovely soul, and that's Mark Farner.
Yeah, Mark's a good guy. So Mark was the
Oh,
lead, or for many years, he's best known as the lead vocalist for Grand Funk Railroad. And Mark, I mean, that he's a voice that we've all grown up with. I mean, there's so many hit
mm.
songs. We're an American band, and just, I mean, there's so many tunes. And it was fun talking with him because he was such a humble guy, and he's a very
Yeah.
spiritual guy too. We got into that, but yeah, he was such a nice man, right?
In fact, what's really interesting is I'm privileged to hear pre-roll and post-roll,
Right. Yeah.
and your conversations, and there's a lot of spirituality in the artists and their their thinking and their philosophy and so on and so forth. Another one, Waylon was really interesting as well.
Right. Yeah. Waylon Rivas. Yeah. So Waylon is an interesting story. He was with a band called Mushroom Head for a long time, which is a pretty heavy rock band. And now he has a new band called A Killer's Confession that's been out for a couple of years, and they've been actually doing really well. They're up on the charts. They're actually on tour right now. And I met Waylon through our friend Pepper Gomez, who owns the record label that they're on. And Waylon's an interesting guy, man. He's not only is he an artist, a singer and songwriter, but he also is an A&R for that label. And he's just a really fun guy. He has this heavy Southern accent. He's just really animated, and this really, really, really cool guy.
Yeah.
And his wife Julie works with him too with the label. So.
In fact, I would. Sometimes it's difficult not to parody that accent sometimes.
Right.
So often when I've finished a session, at my home, one of our bedrooms, I've converted it into this space for myself, this working space,
studio,
the man cave studio, yeah. And I have to be quite disciplined when you're working from home, and which I've done for the 25 years on and off. But so I'll make a ritual of going to spend some time with my wife Pia, and there'll be times when I suddenly broke into the accent, and she'd sort of say, "Would you like a cup of tea?"
Yeah.
She's like looking at me like, "Oh, who have you been talking to this time, or listening to this time?" Or
well,
whatever.
It's actually funny with that because part of it. I mean, I'm kind of I guess I don't know why that is, but I guess we all get influenced by that. So I'll go to England. I go to London. And I'll hang out there for a week or two, and then all of a sudden I notice I'm developing a little bit of a British, because it just gets it gets into your head. It's funny.
Yeah.
But
and the other thing that I love about when we're working together, because we are always joking and laughing and teasing each other about different things. We're sending each other little messages and so on and so forth. But one of the things that, I mean, look, you're a busy guy. You just shot this video with this band. Tell everybody about that, because I think that's fascinating and the world should really know about it.
Well, yeah. So it's actually an interesting story. So this band called Crushed on the Curb. So basically what that is there's two guys in the band that were with a group that was signed to MCA Universal, and they had opened for Guns N' Roses and a whole bunch of different bands. The guitar player, Greg, actually owns a travel company. And one of his guys that he works with there, Jake, is actually found out is a really good singer and songwriter. After Greg's been working with him, developing on that, so they started sending me tracks during the lockdown, and we recorded a bunch of stuff. And we actually starting to release some of that. And one of the videos, actually, I have the video. I'm going to play it in a second. But one of the videos, which is a David Bowie cover, has actually over 140,000 views. And another one of the videos of the song that I played on has another 100,000 views. And that's without a record label, just self-releasing. So actually, this is part of the Switcher Studio app. I'm going to show everybody too, since we're doing that. I can actually pull the video up, and I'm going to play it. I'm going to play that for a bit, and we can check it out.
Cool.
Chickens in America, no tricks at the wheel. No one thinks that they want talent.
I'll show you a jam.
Oh, he caught me.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like.
So anyway, so that's
Yeah. Oh, I'm like you. You know, music just permeates the whole of my soul. So
yeah.
whatever it is,
That's actually. I mean, that's been such a fun project. So those guys actually just came out. The guitar player and the singer, Jake and Greg, came out from back east this past week, and we recorded a video with some stuff that's going to be coming out really soon. But yeah, that's one of my it's one of my 10 jobs, as I tell people.
10 jobs, yeah, like just like Getty photographer, you know.
Yeah, I don't know. I just for
clothing ambassador.
Yeah, for me, like part of that thing is I mean I don't know if I have ADD.
Or can I just say bass player?
Yeah, yeah, and for me, it's all. I mean, all that stuff really is about having fun and being creative, and also working with nice people. Which I mean, I'm very fortunate. Obviously, we get along really well. We have our friend Fiona in London. We have a lot of friends that we've kind of built up a network. Jason Miles in New York is another one. So, we're really fortunate to be able to connect with such creative and, I mean, globally known creative people. It's really exciting.
Yeah, and that is the two things. One is the beauty of the internet from a positive point of view,
right?
Rather than there's so much news on negativity, but there's a lot of positivity as well. And in fact, that was when I started to recognize the value of certain people really grasping social media as a really healthy communication tool. And it is something that you're a consummate professional doing that. I've been doing it a long time, and the whole my thing, the whole Music Tribes Unite thing, media is all about that. And as you know, and the logo and the fact that everybody is interconnected through this universal force of creative music, which comes from the wellspring within each one of us.
Yeah.
And that gift that each one of us is born with and is realized, and even if it isn't realized, that when you can receive the gift of it, as I said to you, I have this thing that it's like hashtag dancing in my office,
right?
Because there's this part of me. If people could, Pia always said, my wife said, maybe you should just video yourself sometimes and put it out on YouTube because people would have a laugh. And I've done it a couple of times where I've parodied a particular song and so on and so forth when the moment's taken me. But most of the time, I'm happy just to immerse myself. And the other thing, let's go back to somebody like Yannicker Sondra or Sondstrom. You say what's that? How do you say it? Sondstrom.
Yeah, Yannicker. Yeah, so it's Yannicker Sondstrom. It's hard because it's a Swedish Swedish name. So she actually, Yannicker is a really interesting person. I met her in Finland. We actually did for our music pages, which was Music Crowns in London and Bass and Guitar Love in Italy. We did a Facebook Live with her actually in the forest near a lake in Finland.
Beautiful.
Which I know sounds crazy, but actually
that's had great.
it had like 130,000 views in a couple of days, that live stream. And she's a really well-known artist in Finland and also in Germany. And we were fortunate to be able to chat with her. That was a really fun and also chat with her at home in a really comfortable environment. She was they were still under the lockdown when we talked, but it was fun to get to know her better, and it's fun to be able to do like where you can actually kind of dive deeper. I think of guys like Rudy Sarzo, which is a friend that we Rudy's a great guy. He's a very well-known rock bassist. Has played with Ozzy, played with Quiet Riot, a bunch of people. And Rudy's a great guy. He's a sweet man, and there's a whole story with him that a lot of people don't know, that he's actually from Cuba. That he's never been back to Cuba since he left as a child. And
Yeah.
we kind of talked about that. We talked about Randy Rhoads. That story's very well known about Randy dying when he was with Ozzy, and
Yeah.
his friend Frankie Banali, who recently passed from Quiet Riot. So it's what's great about the podcast format is you can really take your time and actually dive deep and get to know people because you don't have the time
Yeah.
constraints from a lot of other
Yeah.
kind of formats, right?
Well, the thing with, and when you're talking about that, is what's always been, and I acknowledged this to you before, there have been times when I've been in tears because when I'm listening back to the audio side of it as well, because these people are being very brave and courageous, but you've placed them in this very beautiful, comfortable environment
Mm.
where they're comfortable to share things that they have never shared before in public.
Right. Yeah. I
You
think
know,
that's a big part of the thing is trying to create sort of a comfort zone where they feel like they can share.
mm,
I mean, with you, but obviously with the audience too, because part of my
mm,
mission to talking to people that are already very well known, because I know they do a lot of interviews. I know they get asked a lot of the same questions. I
yeah,
purposely try
yeah,
not to do that. There's some questions
mm,
that, of course, you have to ask 'cause they're just obvious
mm,
ones. But I purposely try to find the different path, and try to get to know them as people, not just as famous, music people or whatever. And I think that
yeah,
that's super important. I think the other part of it too is focusing on them and you as the interviewer. It's not about you; it's all about them and trying to get to their truth
yeah,
and what they want to say,
yeah.
which I think is a really important lesson. I think it's something that even with Jazz in Europe, you kind of really encouraged me, and then I know you've encouraged other people to kind of really focus on that. You know,
Yeah, thank you very much for that. That was a 5-year period of my life that, as you know, ended um, prematurely. Um, because of the, just of one of those changes in the world, which was Brexit, and
right?
so I had no control. I had no control over that, and my partner had no control over it. So it
Mhm.
impacted both of us and a worldwide audience, and it does show
Right.
you how things like that can happen. And I don't mind admitting that I went through a bit of a grieving process because you as I said, you don't feel like you're in control, but in reflection, it's also about the old adage, just the things that you can control and let go of the things that you can't. But also when
Yeah.
you've done that, and
Well, that was
whether
your
it's
baby. That was definitely
yeah, yeah,
a lot of
that was
work.
18 hours a day for a long time.
Right.
And but I think that philosophically, um I celebrate that whole period much easier now because I learned so much about elements of the music industry that I hadn't really been involved with before. And
Mhm.
you certainly, there's a saying, cream rises to the top, but also how you get to learn in an industry that can be frankly tough with
Right.
some people, so that business integrity and ethics really do start to shine through, and you get a bit of a smell or a sense for who's really who.
Right.
And
Yeah. It's not. There's
yeah,
nothing like pressure and a deadline to really. It makes people's personalities pop out. That's for
yeah.
sure. you know.
Uh, but I think also that unseen but vitally important energetic component to life
Mm.
that is interwoven into music and creative people, especially because they're in touch with it, perhaps in one way with their intuition. Let's talk about it. Is that feeling or vibe, as might be used as the vernacular,
Mm.
is one of the reasons where I'm proud of what we're doing,
Yeah.
because that is something that people resonate with. And um, to have that, and as I said, have people feel comfortable very quickly. Um, yes, I agree with you. There are certain questions that artists, um, like we all are going to ask, where do you come from, and so on and so forth. But you have created this beautiful sort of fireside chat feeling
Mm.
that it's like just two friends having a drink,
Yeah.
and sharing stories. And
Well, that's kind of, yeah,
that's,
I think that's definitely my goal.
yeah,
Like I said, I think that you can kind of I know you've done a lot of interviews too. I'm actually going to ask you
yeah.
about that in a second, but
Okay.
um, yeah, but I think that that's part of the goal, right? Is to kind of get them to a place where they're comfortable, where they don't feel like you're going to ask some surprise weird question that they're not expecting,
Mm,
or and I usually try to give the guests a little bit of an idea of what I'm going to talk about, and I have a game plan, but at the same time, I think it's really important to listen to them and what they have to say, not just ask the question.
yeah,
Because you can kind of,
yeah,
when you see maybe a news reporter or whatever, when they do that, when they ask a question and then they're thinking about the next question, the viewers can feel that, or the listeners can feel that in how they
yeah,
approach the interview. And I think it's really important. It's something I've learned. It's really important not to do that. It's really important to ask a question
mm,
and then listen to what the
yeah.
guy's actually saying, right? So
Absolutely,
yeah. So what's
absolutely.
because you've done a lot of interviews with many like jazz luminaries and all sorts of different people. Who's the most, I guess, most fun or most interesting interview that you've done personally?
Well, gosh, that's a good question. Um, I've had some very, very. I'm just off the top of my. I think one of the early ones that I did was, of course, the famous Bill Evans trio, and it was
Right.
Chuck Israels, the bassist,
Hmm.
and I got to. I was nervous, to me, the whole Bill Evans era and its music is just so delightful.
Right.
um, and then to have this access to this personality that I had sort of, look on a pedestal sort of thing.
Right.
Um, and then we got talking, and he said to me afterwards, he said, Nigel, keep doing this, because he said, you asked me questions that I've never been asked before. And he said,
Right.
you made me think. And
Yeah.
he said, I've been doing this for so long. And he said, you engaged me and asked me questions. And it was one of the nicest things that could be said to me, and one of the most positive things for my own career
Hmm.
in interviewing well-known people,
Right.
is that, and as you know, some of my professional background, in other parts of the world, and in interviewing people, and so on and so forth, for different
Hmm.
things. And I realized that I could blend those skill sets that I had developed over
Right.
those years and utilize those, as you and I have talked about. The same with you. That's one of the things that was very parallel and common about our lives in an interesting way. So that was fascinating. And then the first time I connected with Jason Miles,
Right.
which we've both had the privilege of talking to, is that is one genuine dude.
Yeah,
He's just,
Jason. I mean,
yeah,
Jason. People that don't know his name. So almost
yeah,
all the really well known like Luther Vandross tunes he was involved in. He played with Whitney. He's on a lot of her albums playing synth. I mean,
yeah,
Miles Davis. He produced Sting. I mean, it's a
yeah,
really long list
yeah. I know
of people.
Roberta Flack, and
Yeah, yeah, and I
yeah,
mean, and Jason's fun because Jason, he has a lot to say. He's an interesting guy. He's a smart guy. He's been around forever,
oh
and
yeah, yeah,
guys like that, like you said, like I mean, you gave me, I think right out of the gate with Jazz in Europe, I interviewed Bobby Santabria.
yeah,
I think he was actually my first one with you guys, and he's been nominated for 10 Grammys.
yeah. Well,
And he's
I've always,
but yeah,
I
good.
always, I always intended to throw you in at the deep end, because I believed very quickly in your abilities and capabilities, and wanting to, I admitted that it was a well-intended kick up the bottom, as they say in England, but in
Sure.
a positive way, because you certainly showcased to me, just in our conversations, that you would approach this challenge head on, which is what I loved. And all of the people that you and I now have come to know, who are musicians, that I've said, hey, have a go at interviewing these famous people, because they've looked at them and gone, oh my God, I can't do that. Yes, you can,
Yeah.
and so on and so forth. And they've gone on, and like yourself, and it's like what's his name, the bass player, my name's escaped me now. The famous bass player, Christian, no,
Oh, Christian
McBride,
McBride. Yeah,
Christian McBride, yeah.
yeah,
And I'm going, fancy Christian McBride. He's like, what?
yeah.
So yeah, we'll
It's
arrange it.
interesting, because like I pretty much, I won't say I'm fearless, but I'm pretty fearless because I've learned over the
Yeah,
years that I've learned the most when I was really the most uncomfortable. So interviewing people like
yeah,
Christian, who is a really good guy, just as a
yeah,
person, but uh, I admire him as a bass player, of course, and then, but he's
yeah,
much more than a bass player. He's an artistic director for a bunch of globally known music festivals, and there's a really deep history, just like Bobby Santabria. Bobby is, some people may or may not know the name, but you definitely heard his music, and he's
yeah.
a Latin jazz legend. He's known as a sort of an encyclopedia of Latin jazz. So
Certainly
those kind
is.
of
Yeah,
guys, yeah, and it's even both Christian and Bobby. Like, there's the history is so deep that you could literally talk to them for 4 hours, and you're still not going to cover everything. So you have to kind of figure out, okay, well, what am I going to talk about? Like, obviously you're going to talk
yeah,
about Miles, and you're going to talk about, the stuff that really heavily influenced them, and that kind of thing. But it's tricky, like trying to figure out, or same with Billy Sheehan or Rudy Sarzo. Like, there's so much history, you have to kind of figure out, okay, within this 45 minutes or an hour, what am I going to cover? It's a bit of a
yeah,
challenge. So
yeah. But I know that you are fearless, but you're also humble. And I'm
I
here to
try.
tell people that it's that some people go, oh, name dropping. But when you've been in the industry a long time, and you've like yourself, you just happen to have worked with, you know, Miley Cyrus, Gary Puckett. When you're talking to, uh, I've lost her name now, the beautiful Latin singer, J Lo.
Oh, J-Lo. Yeah.
Yeah, and these are people that you spent quality time with behind the scenes,
Yeah,
and
I think.
and
Well,
and
the one thing that I've learned with those people, like,
mm,
I sat in a rehearsal room with J Lo for 2 months in Hollywood,
yeah,
prepping her Dance
mm,
Again tour, and same thing with Miley. We sat in a rehearsal room in Burbank for a week and a half, and then did some stuff for iHeart. But what I learned about those guys is they're just people. Obviously they're famous,
mm,
but when you get them alone, away from all this stuff, they're just normal people, and they act normally like
mm,
we would act. Sometimes they're happy, sometimes
yeah,
they're not happy, and or whatever it is. But that's a really good lesson because for the
yeah,
interviewing thing, once you know that, like, we all put our pants on the same way, we all do the certain
yeah,
things the same way. That's sort of like the great equalizer. Then it becomes, what kind of information are you trying to get from them, and what are you trying to disseminate, with their history and who they are as a person. Just figuring that out, sort of like, is the challenge at that point, right? You kind of forget about the famous part of it. You try to
yeah.
move past that, I guess. I don't know.
Uh, yeah, yes, but by the same token, for the people that are listening, is that when you do have that accessibility, when people, uh, we're in a situation now where publishers are contacting us, right,
Right.
and
Yeah.
saying, and as an influencer with integrity, and that's the thing that really is the branding now, is that people are recognizing that, the importance of that in a world where authenticity is far more valued now than I think this sort of surface veneer that people were used to, and perhaps, uh, just smothered with for a certain period of time, and that people have said, I don't want that anymore. I want real. I want something real.
Yeah.
And I think that the lockdown has given people opportunity to reflect,
Right.
including, the music industry as a whole, I hope. And that, as we come out the other side, yeah, of course, we'd all want to let our hair down, and it's going to be difficult for both you and I know, but
Right. So true.
But
So true.
yeah, but metaphorically speaking, anyway, at least. But once that's passed, we'll see. You know, I'm really hoping that people will look forward to sharing their own individual stories, and that people will value those autobiographical components of people, and that we all say that that's something that I want to listen to. That's an interesting perspective on
Right.
whatever it is. And the music industry as a whole um, needs to, and it does, and it will constantly evolve and change.
Right.
And the musician themselves, uh, the perception of what success really is, um, is I think, changing for people. They're looking much more about quality of lifestyle.
Well, I think too,
Um,
like, I mean, in terms of the music business, I think it's awesome because I'm starting to see a lot of shows come back, and I just saw a bunch of huge
oh, right.
festivals being posted in the last week, which is exciting because, I mean, of course, I'm a musician too, but
Mm,
I think what you're saying about the lockdown and kind of people reprioritizing certain things, I think that that's definitely true. And I think that
yeah.
an artist, part of what they do is the truth is so important in what you do, and people can kind of pick up on that when it's real and when it's not real.
Yeah.
And not all the time, but generally, I think that that's true. And also too, what is success? I mean, success is different now than it used to be because now people aren't really
Yes.
buying. They're not really buying records. They're doing downloads, right? That's how they determine
Yeah.
success. The same in our case, hitting 100,000 downloads is a really big deal in the podcasting world.
Mm, mm.
But at the same time, it doesn't mean the work stops. It's like you celebrate that, and then we keep moving because
Yeah. Yeah.
we have
Yeah.
a lot of,
Yeah. Exactly.
as you
Right.
know, we've got a lot of people coming up, but we got people that we got
Yeah.
to get
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
I've got
Yeah.
videos I need to release. But definitely thankful for all the support. Also from companies like Switcher Studio. They
Yeah.
contacted us about working with us, which is
Hey.
exciting. It's a great app, and they're great folks, and they're helping us do what we do. Also, Shure Microphones,
Yeah.
the folks at Mixerbox in Asia and USA, they've been really supportive. We did a live for them, and they have 200 million followers around the world. So
Yeah.
we're looking forward to doing more with them. But like all those opportunities, I think just come because we've been working hard, and we've been really fortunate to get great guests. I think it's really all about the guests, don't you?
I do. Uh, for me, you and I are what we call the front end and the rear end. You know.
Well, okay.
Yeah. So I put myself on the spot now, right? Okay.
Yeah.
But between what we're doing is we're producing another thing. Another thing that I'm very proud of is that the quality of what we produce.
Right.
When you have people that are industry icons that have been doing this for years and years and years, and they comment so positively on the package as a whole
Right.
that we're doing. So from my point of view, what I'm focused on is the sound quality,
Right.
so that I can, and when we release it and how we release it as well, and what you provide me, and so that whole package that we're offering, to me, is vitally important. And I mean, one of the things that people may not recognize and understand, that where you and I are going, yes, it's fantastic to achieve 100,000, and it was agony in some respects for me, just like click, click, click.
I know. I was
Finally,
sending me updates. I'm like, we'll get there. We'll get there. Just calm down.
yeah, I know you were really great. So it's okay, it's fine. But and I suppose that's one of the other things that we work well, is that some of the things that we enjoy and how we do it are slightly different. And I'm, as I'm sort of looking at from my business mind is always saying, okay, what about this? What about that? And
Right.
when you get nearly 800 people on Apple Podcast giving you a 4.6 out of 5 rating,
Right.
and that's the general public,
Yeah.
saying, and the comments are fantastic. Obviously about
Yeah,
the show.
it's I mean, to me that that's all like very humbling,
Yes, it is.
because for me, as you know, I mean, like you see my kind of my progress with the interviewing thing, and it's
Mm.
it's a challenging thing, and we all have our moments of being self-conscious and being whatever,
Mhm.
but my thing has always been to try to kind of push through that and just kind of keep
Mm.
growing. And
Yeah.
you allowed me to do that with Jazz in Europe, and when we first talked about that, I had just done an interview with our mutual friend Fiona Ross in London.
Mhm.
I had done a Facebook Live with her, and you saw that, and then you contacted
Yeah.
me and asked me about
Yeah.
writing for Jazz in Europe magazine, and I think what my comment to you was, well, I'd have to have a really good editor because my actual writing ability is not the best. And you said, you offered to be the editor for me, which was brave of you. But but I think like you giving me the opportunity has definitely led to where we are now. So I think it's really important for me to
Mm.
acknowledge that you having faith in me and Andrew, the other publisher for Jazz in Europe, really allowed me to kind of grow and work out the kinks. And I'm still doing that. I mean, I'm still learning, but the interview thing is fun, and when it's working, it's really exhilarating. As you know, it's really, you come
Yeah.
off a good interview like with a high that you're not going to really get from any drug or anything else. So I think it's super important to kind of keep learning. you know.
Well, just to parallel that uh, and acknowledge, um, just acknowledge the what you. One of the things I loved about you and is that it's not always times when we're both feeling fantastic.
Right.
We've got our own complex lives and all of the things that and the last year or plus has been challenging for everybody, emotionally,
Yeah.
physically, mentally, the whole thing. Yeah, and we've all
Especially
had to
especially
dig
in
deep.
France for you guys with the lockdown has been much more difficult than
Yeah,
it has been for here. Really, I mean, in Las
yeah,
Vegas,
it
anyways.
it yeah, it has been. And I never forget you said to me once, Nigel, it's you said it's a process, and then you said to me, we got to remember to enjoy the process.
Right.
And
Yeah.
those were both kind and very prophetic words. And I'm raising them with you, one to say thank you, but also to remind myself and other people in talk as we're talking, is that it is that way for us all.
Mm.
And providing that we have mutual respect around the world.
Right.
And yeah, I'm getting on my soapbox a bit with music tribes, but we are all tribes of a large global tribe, and we all live on the same blue planet.
Right.
And peace is the way that we want to focus our intentions, and thoughts create things. And you and I have talked about this a lot, about being very cognizant of your own mind chatter and
Right.
how that's important, and how you um, express yourself, not just verbally, physically, but energetically.
Yeah,
And
and I think I mean it's important to keep, especially when we have stuff like with the lockdown and all that stuff. It's you have a
yeah,
choice. You can wallow and be depressed and wallow in self pity, or you can say, okay, well now how am I going to deal with this? And I mean that
yeah,
was part of the impetus for starting the podcast, was like trying to make the
yeah,
positive out of a negative situation. I mean the positive is, of
yeah,
course, everybody in the world is, all these artists, amazing artists, are sitting at home, not being able to create, not being able to reach people that they normally would be able to. So the podcast in that situation is actually a great avenue for them.
yeah,
And also with our global music pages, Music Crowns and Bass and Guitar Love, and we have almost 7 million, music followers that at the same time want to hear from those people because they're used to be able to see them on tour, and all of a sudden they can't do
yeah,
that either. So it kind of way it created a perfect storm for our situation. When we're starting out, we got access to some people that normally would be on the road. Right.
yeah. Of course, and but uh, I think that we're as as we evolve and what we're doing, and new locations, new homes,
Right.
new places to do things, and people coming and connecting and that sort of thing. It's all evolution within itself, and it's all
Yeah.
exciting.
Right.
And I think that I just to add on to what you said is that um, is to be mindful and discerning, but also to take a risk.
Hmm.
Because again, I bring about the one thing that you sort of expound to people is it's a process, and we both remember we talked about mistakes, and mistakes are not negative all the time. They're learning opportunities,
Yeah.
and yeah,
Like many people, I've probably learned way more from the times I've, made a mistake or
yeah,
had a difficulty, right? When things are smooth, you're just going along with it. But then when you get really challenged with even stuff like dealing with the lockdown stuff or whatever happens in life, that's when you really have to rise to the occasion. And that's when you're actually learning more, I think.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And there's I used when I used to teach a lot and lecture, and
Right.
I used to say to people when I was on stage, we all come, sadly, the majority of us come from an education system where we tend to get told about the 95 we got wrong out of 100.
Right.
Sorry, we tend to get told about the 5 we get wrong out of 100 rather than the 95 right.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it's yeah, and we need to sort of remember, and again, I think that's one of the things that you and I have recognized throughout this whole project that we're doing together, is that it's about celebrating all of the diversity of different of people and their gifts, and
Right.
also saying, and what's been fantastic is another thing that you hear people in these chats that you're having with them be quite self-reflective about things, and say, well, yeah,
Yeah.
and some of the questions that you've asked, and some of the insights that they've shared about their career paths thus far, and some of the things they might do differently, but they don't regret what they've done in the past because you can't. And those are, I mean, really valuable golden nuggets that you've mined in your chat with them, and we
Yeah.
now hear it all.
Yeah. I mean, it's what's awesome about that. Actually, one of the Graham too from Air Supply was another one for that.
Upcoming.
Yeah, upcoming. Yeah, that's coming
Yeah.
up next week actually. Um, but Graham it was really funny because we were talking and then we started getting into some esoteric stuff and we have some of the
Mm,
similar beliefs about things and he's like,
yeah.
oh, this isn't what I expected, but this is really good. And I'm like, yes, because that's
Yeah,
what you
yeah,
want.
yeah.
You don't want to blindside them with, when you can go deeper. Again, with the podcast format, it allows you to do that, and that's such a cool thing when they acknowledge that, like, oh, okay, we can go there. And Mark Farner was kind of the same way with, from
Yeah.
Grand Funk. We talked about some of his spiritual stuff that he believes in, and he's a really spiritual guy, and that's great. I mean, I think that's a big part of who certain people are, and that's a big part of his life. And I think, it's
Yeah.
I'm not afraid to talk about that stuff, and I think
No.
it's
And
showing them as a whole person, not just as a star, right?
yeah, yeah, very much that holistic component
Yeah.
that is, again, we come back, I guess, full circle to this. Um, we've naturally just tapped into something that lives within both of us as an integrous element, is this authenticity,
Right.
and that's coming through, and the name is that it's music matters, and it
Yeah,
does.
and I mean, and
Yeah.
I know we both feel the same about that. Like, music is such an important part of life, and
Mm,
without music, I mean, life, or without not only music but art in general, life would be,
yeah.
a dark place and a gray place, and we'd be missing that. So I think it's really important to shine the light on talented folks. I mean, obviously, famous people, yeah, that gets the views and that gets the numbers, but also, taking that kind of cachet or that credit, and then using that to shine the light on people that are lesser known, but that are also huge talents. Ann Martinez is
Oh
one that
yeah,
comes to
yeah,
mind
yeah,
from
yeah,
Las
yeah.
Vegas. And I was talking with Ann today, and she's a star, and she's a star in Vegas, but she could actually be a global star. She just hasn't been seen by all the people that need to see her yet. But I think it's important to
Yeah,
shine
yeah.
the light on people like that, because there's
And
lots of them around, right?
Aaron is,
Yeah, Aaron Baltzer.
Aaron
Yep,
is,
yep.
yeah, fantastic. And what about, what's that? Charlotta Curve or
Yeah,
Curbs?
Charlotta. Yeah. So
Oh
Charlotta,
man.
Charlotta, people should actually look her up. Well, actually, all these people we're talking about, but Charlotta Curbs is actually a well-known singer in Finland. And I have my friend who's works with Yannicker, a producer for Finnish television, had done a show on her. And it's kind of like an interview show, music show called Hem Alive. And
Mhm.
she was one of the artists that I saw, and I was like, wow, and such a good voice. And like, not only a pop voice, a singer songwriter, but she also is
Yeah.
classically trained. She does the traditional Nordic singing. It's like something from a movie, the fjords
Oh
of,
yeah.
it's
Yeah. Yeah.
so people like
It's
that.
very ethereal, isn't it?
Oh yeah, and and it's world class. And there's a lot of those folks out there that, they may not ever get heard, or some do, but they only get heard, like in her situation. She mainly is known in Finland, but I think people like that deserve a global stage. And between, the
Yeah.
podcast outlets, because I think now we're getting downloaded in like over 50 countries.
Yeah. We
And
are.
then
Yeah.
also,
Yeah. The
yeah,
stats. Yeah.
right. And then also with the video outlets, like, it's such a great chance to showcase people like that and let people hear their talents. And that's something with Switcher Studio that we talked about. That's a big part of what I'm doing. I'm doing the Switcher
Yeah.
Chats series, which actually really focuses even more on music from performers. We talk about their stories, but then also I have them do at least, 2 or maybe 3 songs. I just had Felina Carter,
Yeah.
who's a great singer-songwriter from Las Vegas, up and coming artist. I had Chris Hears, who's a really well-known country singer-songwriter. So we're going to be releasing,
Lucky.
right? Yeah. So we're going to be releasing those as podcasts also, but those are also for video.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, for Switcher Studio. So, so there's lots coming up. I encourage people to also to contact us,
Yeah.
and let us know if you'd like to be featured. Send us some demo stuff we can check out, because I'm definitely looking for new artists for the podcast and for the video outlets. And I think we both are. We've talked about some people in France.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So
yeah, definitely. We were, well, there's a couple of them that are so itching to get back out there,
right.
and do their things. And one of them actually today, they're headlining a very local to me but very famous venue called 180, and people flock in this area to it like a magnet.
Yeah.
And the fact that this particular friend of ours is, I won't mention their person's name right now, but they're headlining it, right?
Right.
So they're certainly recognized locally as well as larger, around that, same thing. But like you said, yeah, we must, and I use the word must. It's like this. We've got this mission to do these things and continue it, and
right.
It's
and we're really only scratching the surface. So we kind of like we're now entering into season 2, but we have a lot of other stuff that's like we're talking about, even stuff not related to music. I mean, one of our mutual passions is paranormal and UFO stuff.
Yeah.
And so that's something else that's on the horizon.
Yeah, another one of our projects, and in fact,
I can add to my 10 jobs. And,
we're going to go into season 3 soon as well. That's going to come up shortly. So, that's another thing. That's the 3rd season or something. But like you say, teamwork's important, and collaboration, and everybody's got a decent and something to offer, and we will continue. And once again, I'm excited, and I continue to be excited. There are times when it's you're in the little man cave on the hill in the middle of nowhere, and it's like, oh, with lockdown, but it's kind of, so I'm really, really like this, and the fact that, I mean, isn't it kind of really neat and cool that you and I can be, and we are in totally different time zones,
Right.
and we're communicating with some taco joint in the middle of Las Vegas about something, and
Yeah.
they're also interacting, and so there's these beautiful elements of
Yeah.
um, vibes and
Collaboration.
connection,
Yeah.
collaboration that we can have that are
Right.
fun, really, really fun.
Yeah. And I think,
So
and I mean, having our partners too,
yeah.
have really helped that, because they're helping us reach audiences and people that we wouldn't even normally be able to. And social media definitely, I mean, plays a huge part in that. And
Yeah.
actually, along with that, Nigel, tell people how they can find you. Your different, and you have a bunch of different pages, but what like music tribes and all that kind of stuff. How can people find you
Oh,
online?
okay. Yeah. Well, I'm you know, the clothing brand is really simple. That's musictribesunite.eu, or in my collaboration with you.com.
Right.
Also, so my whole brand is Music Tribes Unite. And then I have different extensions. So the URL is always one word: Music Tribes Unite
Right.
dot something. So for the podcast production, it's Music Tribes Unite dot media.
Right, because you're not
And
only
then
producing our podcast, but you're actually open to produce other podcasts, and
yeah,
you do voiceover work, and you do the voiceover
yeah,
intros for our shows. So
that's right. And I've got another thing with we do male and female, and that's called Voice Rap Studio.
okay,
So that's here as well. So it's multifunctional. I've got a proper isolation sound booth, which you can't see off camera.
right,
So I've got all the toys and the equipment, that sort of thing. And I appreciate you asking me. I mean, I've been doing voiceover. I started 25 years ago now.
oh wow, yeah, it's been a while. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's you have a really interesting background. We've really only barely touched the surface, but you owned a very successful radio station.
Yeah,
You worked for Canadian immigration at one
that's
point.
right. Yeah. Yeah.
You've done UK government stuff that we can't talk about, and
Yeah, I've signed three official secrecy acts in three
yeah.
different
So, but
countries.
yeah. So we're probably being monitored, but that's a different story.
Yeah,
But
well, they know a lot more about me than you would imagine, because of
yeah,
even
well,
my
probably not all of
my
us
blood type, the whole thing,
for
right?
that matter. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
awesome. I'm hopefully we'll do another one of these when we hit 200,000 downloads. We'll
Oh
see.
yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. I think that'll. It's the fact that we've done 100,000 in 7 months
I know
is
it's crazy,
yeah. It means 200,000 is achievable,
right?
and but we always knew, didn't we, that 100,000 was a goal, and we believed it was possible. That was
Yeah,
the thing. And I suppose from my end, that's what I'll end with today in our chat, is that you and I have always believed that this can be achieved, and we've enjoyed the journey
right.
thus far. And here we are today, being able to say hand on heart, we've done this so far, and
Right.
that's a lovely. But we're both those kind of people that aren't going to just wallow in that success, because we're ready for the next stage.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's yeah. You celebrate the success, then you realize that there's
Mm,
more work to do, and that's good.
yeah,
I mean, and there's a lot of people, there's a lot of talent out there that we definitely have yet to showcase. And actually, I should
yeah,
mention too that part of what's happening is I have my virtual studio here with the green screen, which is at my home. But I'm actually starting next week. I'm partnering with the Space in Las Vegas. So their social media is at the Space LV or at Monday Start, and they have a fabulous, really cool podcast studio that they built over there. So for my in-person guests, I'm actually going to be doing that there,
yeah,
starting next week, hopefully. And partners on that again would be Switcher Studio and Shure Microphones. That they're supplying gear for that also, and yeah, that's really exciting. Mark Chinook over there at the Space and his team
yeah,
they're awesome people. That's such a cool environment, and it's nice to be able to bring artists and guests into a really nice, lovely. I should say the Space, because lovely space, um, but yeah, so that's exciting, and
yeah,
that's just kind of part of part of the progression of what we're doing, because I definitely, since
Yeah.
COVID has ended, I'm able to do in-person chats more. It wasn't really possible, obviously, during the lockdown, but that also
No.
enabled us to get a lot more international guests, which is amazing. And as people start
Yeah.
touring again and coming through Vegas, we're going to be, I'm getting publicists that are already contacting me, so we're going to be having more guests in that from that standpoint too. So yeah, it's exciting. There's definitely a lot more happening, and we're growing.
Can you just remind everybody about your new video, because that's something else I think that you played. How can people find out about that?
Yeah, that's so that band is called Crushed on the Curb, and just search for us on Instagram and Facebook and all that kind of stuff. And that's a really exciting project. And we have the next release, which is coming out. We're doing a huge global push, and we have a whole lot of happening with that. And that's actually the guitar player produced a lot of that, but our co-producer and one of the gentlemen that's working with us is a guy that did a lot of stuff with Alanis Morissette and he's worked with a whole long list of people. So that's pretty exciting as a bass player, a musician guy. So that's I'm actually going to record a track as soon as we finish. I have to get another track done for them. But, at
Okay.
3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, well,
I'm a bit of a vampire.
Yeah, I'm gonna have. Well, actually, you know me, I'm up early, like before dawn. It's like what? So I'm gonna go and have some breakfast.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, what time
Well,
is it?
petit déjeuner.
Yeah, what time is it in France?
Well, actually, 11:47 a.m. But
Okay.
I got up at 9 a.m. my time, and it's like I left Pierre in bed asleep, and I crept around the house, that sort of thing. And I actually I didn't realize how loud the coffee machine was.
Oh,
because it's the rest of the house is completely silent, and then we have like these automatic shutters, and I open the shutter, and then I suddenly realize, oh, that needs a bit of WD-40 because it's a bit squeaky, because I'm going, I'm going to wake her up, on a Sunday.
Yeah. Well, I'm okay, a vampire.
My friend.
I'm a vampire anyway, so I guess most people know that by now. But I think Nigel, thank you so much for joining me. And I definitely want to say I appreciate all your hard work. And as you know, it's kind of a crazy schedule for both of us trying to get these shows out and getting them out on time. But I really very much appreciate all the support out there. The people that listen to us and subscribe. It's super awesome. And right now we're on basically all the major podcast outlets around the world. And that's actually growing. So, that's also very exciting. And there's more news coming with that stuff too. But so I very much appreciate your work, Nigel, and
thank you.
Having, our 5 a.m. talks. It's always fun.
Yeah, like it's meeting time. What? It's 5 a.m.
Yeah, I know. You'll ring me up, and then I'm like, I gotta go to sleep.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
It's funny.
Okay, my friend.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay,
Take
great.
care.
Well, have a great morning in France, and we'll talk soon.
Yeah. Okay. Bye.
Ciao. Bye. So we'll go out on that.
Okay, thanks very much. That was great fun. And